Hello, my chicklets. Thank you for stopping by. Today, we will be reading day 20 in our Soulmate September series, where you can send and receive gifts from your soulmate once a year. This story is called Nothing Can Stop Fate.
There you go, you filthy heathen. Right where you belong.
Remus sat down the box with a plop, an excited smile on his face. He had done it. He had finally moved away from his parents. He was free. Looking over the few possessions he had, he giggled excitedly, beginning to dance around the room. You really sound like a maniac when you do that. Remus turned to look at his best friend, throwing himself into Janice's arms.
We did it, Snakeface! We finally did it!
The excitement poured out of his mouth with each letter as he fought not to burst apart at the seams. The two had talked about running away, but Janice had been the one with the plan. He was brilliant and had never planned to leave without storing up some cash to fall back on. They both worked, and Janice did his thing, hiding what he needed to in order to get them started. When Remus was inevitably kicked out of his house, they easily had enough supplies and money to move. Remus had stolen the car, swapped out the license plates with his parents, and then they drove off into freedom. He left his whole life behind, and it was great.
Come on, help me unpack the chemistry supplies.
Chemistry supplies? For goodness sake, are you talking about the kitchen supplies?
Well, where else am I supposed to do my chemistry experiments?
If you blow up the kitchen, I will push you down a flight of stairs. Remus chuckled again, opening the box and putting things away. Janice had opted for straightening out their living room, so Remus went back to dancing and mumbling.
You're going to go up here?
Their kitchen stock was a mix of cheap things that they had managed to get from other people, broken bowls that Janice had repaired, or things that Remus had strategically pilfered. It was exactly the type of life that Remus wanted, especially since he had never gotten the chance to know his soulmates. He knew he had soulmates because he could feel it in his bones. Every year on your soulmate's birthday, you felt a pull to send them something, a trinket or a letter, something that helped you build a bond, and from what Remus had seen with his own brother, some people even got their soulmates' cell phone numbers in high school. Remus had never gotten a gift, not a letter, not even a piece of belly lint. His parents teased and chastised him for being a nuisance that no one would ever love. It used to hurt, but he could barely feel the sting nowadays. He had always been too wild and chaotic for his brother, too demented for his parents. He was certain that the first drawing he had sent to his soulmates had probably scared them off.
Time for the stabby things.
I'm not taking you to the emergency room again, Janice shouted from the front room, and Remus couldn't help but laugh. Jay had said he found Remus's eccentric behavior quaint. He still wasn't sure what that meant, but Janice wanted him around, and that was enough.
I'm going to build a jail cell out of the boxes when I'm done,
Remus shouted out, but Janice didn't respond, at least not verbally. He had walked into the kitchen holding something.
What you got there?
Remus, I think these are for you. His voice was calm and searching, but his curiosity was obvious. In his hand were a letter that had beautifully perfect handwriting on it, and the same necklace that Remus had gotten for one of his soulmates this year. Not the exact same necklace, because Remus had crudely drawn an anatomical heart on the back of the one he had given his soulmate, but it was still the same one. Sure, today was his 18th birthday, but why would they both start sending gifts now?
Gimme, gimme!
He began to rip the envelope to shreds to open it, yanking out the letter. Dear Starlight, I again deeply apologize if the nickname offends you, but I do not know what else to call you. I hope you will write back soon. I theorize that you either have not been getting my letters or have decided we do not fit into your life properly. I sincerely hope it is the former, but I am remiss to admit that Virgil, our other soulmate, has been wearing me down in his anxiety-induced conclusions. My dear Starlight, I hope you are safe and happy. Virgil and I have recently begun preparations to move in with each other. We are going to a college that is approximately 100 miles from my hometown. I'm excited to further investigate our compatibility, but your absence has been felt." The letter continued on for several more pages, but Remus had to stop reading it. The words were beginning to swim. His eyes were filled with tears, and he held up the letter. "Jay, they wrote." His voice was so soft and weak that Janice was immediately by his side. "Let me see it, Remus." Janice's voice was quiet as he took the paper from Remus's hands and began to skim through it, his face contorting in confusion and frustration. Signed at the bottom were a name and a number. What? They had finally wanted something after all this time? Janice had never had a lot of friends before. In fact, he would consider Remus his only friend at this point. He had been a bullied kid in his freshman year of high school, hiding behind a mask of fake smiles and pleasantries, but Remus had seen through it all. Remus had punched down his walls rather violently, and he wasn't going to allow someone to come and hurt his friend. "Hey, Ree, let me check this person out." Remus, normally talkative, chaotic Remus, just nodded, and Janice had to fight against his own anger at what damage had already been done. He plugged the number into his phone, taking a picture of the letter before sending a quick text. "I'm his roommate, Jay. What do you want with him?" The response was almost immediate. "Hello, Jay. I have many questions, though I understand there may be questions on his side as well. I believe it is logical and fair if I answer your questions and you answer one of mine. My intention is to meet with him, form a relationship, and, if it is a healthy relationship, continue from that point. I'm surprised that you did not get that intention from my letter. I will have to have Virgil recheck my wording in all further communications. I apologize for the delay that will cause. In turn, may I assume that he has not received the other letters that I have been sending him each year?" Janice looked over the message, all written within one text. Remus's soulmate sure was a talkative one. They would fit well together, but this man seemed a little pretentious. Remus wasn't easily hurt by words, which would be a good thing, but typically the more intelligent a person was, the more likely they were to be an asshole. The second soulmate thing did seem to line up. Janice drummed on the kitchen counter, thinking his next message over. He could tell the truth, explain that Remus had never received a letter, but that wouldn't tell him much more about these people. "Where's your proof?" This response took longer, Janice putting away the rest of the kitchen supplies as he waited for his phone to buzz again. He looked over at Remus, who was quietly arranging beheaded stuffed animals on the couch. "It has taken me a bit to find the older copies as my computer was packed away for the move, but I am able to send you a copy of all of my previous letters. I have kept them for posterity." There were a few pictures attached, and Janice began to read through them. He read every line and letter, trying to decipher the intention of this soulmate, but he couldn't find an area of deception. Stress, anxiety, sadness, yes, but no deception. He sighed, looking at the original letter over one more time. They were moving close by. Fate really had its way of working things out, didn't it? "After you move, there will be a coffee shop on 4th Street. Meet us there at 3 p.m. on the 14th. You should be free since classes won't have started yet. You can meet him then." It looked like this other person was typing for a while, but they eventually only sent 2 simple words. "Thank you." Janice put down his phone, rubbing his face. "All right, Remus, we're going to talk about war plans." "Really?" he asked softly, cuddling a stuffed octopus that was missing 3 tentacles. "So..." He held out his hand for the letter, and Janice handed it over. "He left his phone number on the back. I don't think you should talk to him yet." "But..." "Just trust me. We're going to look up everything we can about these 2, so that you know what you're getting into. Let's finish unpacking, then we will go to the library and start looking them up. Everything we can find on these 2. "Oh, fun! Another library I can get kicked out of," Remus said with a giggle, pulling at the legs of his octopus. The time flew by, and Remus could feel himself growing more and more anxious, the intrusive thoughts echoing in his head. They didn't want him. They wouldn't like him. He couldn't blame them. Remus was pulling at his hair, barely able to hold himself together as he and Janice sat at the coffee shop. "I wonder if you can die from actual heartbreak," Remus asked with a broken giggle, tears streaming down his face. "Wouldn't that be something? Cause of death, rejection?" His breath was coming in ragged gasps. Janice was trying to help, but he had never been great at this. "Hey, is it okay if I help you?" Remus looked up to a guy dressed in a black and purple hoodie. "Just follow my breathing, in and out, slowly." Remus looked up at the very handsome boy who was walking him through the breathing exercises. He felt so weird to have someone walk him through this. Jay had tried, but it wasn't the same. Remus continued to breathe, looking up at the man until his breath was relaxed. Thanks," he muttered, his hands still shaking. "No prob." The man shoved his hands in his pockets. "Virgil, you found them." Behind the man who had helped Remus stood another man who was just as handsome, beautiful black hair and a tie. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Logan, and this is my soulmate, Virgil. May I assume you are Jay?" he asked, looking at Janice. "You can." He motioned for Logan and Virgil to sit. "And is this—" Logan's voice faltered out a bit, and Janice recognized that he was holding back his hope. "This is Remus, your other soulmate." "It is a pleasure to meet you, Remus." "Yo." Remus was shaking. How did I never get your letters?" he asked. "I did some investigating, and I may have had some help." Logan pulled up a briefcase that Remus hadn't noticed he was carrying, opening it. Inside were a bunch of different baubles, treasures, and letters. "Your brother found these in your parents' house. He said he couldn't find all the letters. He thinks some of them may have been burned." You talked to my brother?" "Yes, and he said that he missed you, that you left without warning, but he understood. He said your parents had never been kind. He hopes this will— how did he phrase it, Virgil?" "Mend bridges?" "Yes, that." Remus began looking through all the letters and gifts, and for once he felt so much love. He shuffled through the papers, smiling as he looked happily through everything. He felt like he would burst until he got to the bottom. All of the drawings he had sent as a kid, with all of the red crayon, they were still there. They still had them. "You kept these?" he asked quietly. "Of course. We wanted to get to know you." Logan reached out for Remus's hand, and it broke the dam in Remus's heart. Everything he had been holding back, every lie he had told himself about not caring if he was loved, it all came out, and he hugged the pictures. Thank you. Janice began to relax. He closed his eyes slowly. He knew his best friend would be safe and happy. Thank you all for listening. Again, this was day 20 in our Soulmate September series, Nothing Can Stop Fate. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.